Welcome back to Gameday Tarps podcast, episode 18. On this week, we will be discussing the Professional Women's Hockey League beginning, the continuation of the World Junior Championship Tournament, the moves that Chicago is having to make on their roster, some big WHL trades, and the initial All-Star teams that have been released, as well as our two segments, Game Day Reviews and Battle of the Tarps. How you guys doing today, gentlemen, on this Saturday evening?
Pretty good, man.
Pretty good, Riley. There's a lot to cover this episode.
There is a lot. That's only about a quarter of what's to cover, so we got a lot of stuff. But let's start off. I think we kind of have fun starting every episode off with something that's not hockey, and I think this week we're not covering baseball, which is good because we don't know baseball at all, but we get to cover basketball, NBA, and our Canadian team, the Toronto Raptors. They receive in a trade RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and a 2024 second round pick. And the New York Knicks acquire OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, and Malachi Flynn. Let's break this down. What do you guys think about this trade for our Canadian team, the Toronto Raptors, getting the Canadian boy, RJ Barrett?
Well, not even just Barrett. I mean, they got probably one of the best guys to come off the bench, too, quickly. And they're both playing phenomenal for Toronto, and it's awesome for Toronto to even get a Canadian player, right? Let alone a hometown boy. So, yeah, no, in my eyes, that trade worked out for both, I'd say, so far.
Yeah, Saga City Pride has come home finally, and boy, as a Raps fan, I'm extremely excited. I never thought I'd see the day that RJ Barrett would come home to Toronto to play for the Raptors, so it is awesome to see that he was coming home in a deal to send OG Anunoby to the New York Knicks.
And he joins, who's the other Canadian? Chris Boucher? He joins Boucher. They didn't have to give up Boucher.
Yeah,
And
he's
then
from Montreal.
the other Canadian they had before him was Anthony Bennett. I know they had him for like a minute and then they cut him, but that was years ago. And then there's only two guys left in the league. Or well, there's a few. They're not getting shy ever. Gorgeous or Gilgis Alexander, but Kelly Olynyk could be someone they could target before he retires from our hometown here in Kamloops. And then they could also look at a guy like Wiggins when he hits free agency again. But we all know that the Warriors need him unless they're going to trade him soon. But we can see what happens with that. But it's cool to see RJ Barrett join. He's young enough. Their team's transitioning. I think it's a great transition piece for them. And like you said, Dak, quickly he kind of lives up to his name. He's quick. He's got quick hands. He's got quick moves. And he's young. He seems to defend hard. And that's kind of what they need going forward. If they're going to build around people, they need guys that are young with talent and that can push the pace a little bit. All right, to the other Toronto team in hockey now. The Toronto Maple Leafs just last week placed Ilya Samsonov on waivers and they reassigned him to Toronto. But I will say this, or the Toronto Marlies. I will say this, though, that they did something so much smarter than what the Edmonton Oilers did with Campbell. Whereas the Oilers sent Campbell down to Bakersfield and then they put him in the very first game and he got torched right away and he's been terrible ever since. They sent down Samsonov. He's to see like a mental therapist. He's to work with other goalie coaches not in the system. And he's to take a couple days off from the rink and not play. He's going to miss their first couple games. They called up their goalie from the ECHL to be the backup. And they're going to let him just relax for a minute and then get him in some games. I think that's a super smart idea. And it's something every team should look at when they have a goalie that's struggling like Campbell and Samsonov, because it clearly backfired with Campbell just saying, here you go, man, get in the net, you'll dominate. And he got lit for 5 his first night.
Yeah, this is exactly, this is the perfect example. Toronto's handling it so well with Ilya Samsonov, but with the Jack Campbell situation, you just throw him into the fire. Like that's not how you build the goalie's confidence again. And the fact that he got torched, he lost his starting job in Bakersfield of the AHL, and now he's the backup. But with Samsonov, the fact that they're giving him time to just relax, recuperate, and actually talk to the guy, work with him, his strengths and weaknesses, and just kind of ease him back into the game. Like that's how an organization should help a player out. Edmonton just absolutely just destroyed any chance they had with getting Jack Campbell to 100%.
Could you imagine the media attacking Samsonov if he were to lose his first game starting, like right away for the Marlies or something, and getting like 5 goals scored against him or something?
Yeah, and the worst thing about that is, guess what? Because you're Samsonov and you got sent to the minors, what's nice for Campbell, he got sent to Bakersfield, California. There's no real hockey media there. No one's coming after him, really, right? Like, no Edmonton reporters are flying down to California to watch him and judge him. Samsonov is literally moving to a dressing room down the hallway. The media is still right there. They can go to these games whenever they want. They can come and question him whenever they want. Like, he's totally pinned in, so I'm glad that he's getting some time. Like, personally, I, being a Tampa fan, like, I want the Maple Leafs to not succeed, but you don't want to see a guy go through that much mental struggle that he's admitted he's going through. You want him to at least be able to succeed as a player. And yeah, I just hope that he can figure it out.
Eventually, I mean, Samsonov will bounce back, but the Toronto Maple Leafs aren't really hurting for goalies at the moment because now they have found their new number one starter in Martin Jones. He is now 7-3 since joining the Maple Leafs. He has let in 1 goal in the last 70 plus shots on in their Southern California road trip. He started against the Kings. He started against the San Jose Sharks tonight. It's crazy. Like Martin Jones has been a saving grace for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it's actually really cool to see.
Yeah, he's stepped it up after everyone pretty much gave up on him. They signed him just to like be in case they need him. Well, they needed him, and he said, "All right, I'm here. I'm
Yeah,
here to play."
like
So
imagine
I'm yeah
going from
happy
having
for him.
Samsonov have letting 5 goals in on 19 shots to a goalie in Martin Jones who has let in 1 goal in 70 plus shots. Like talk about a massive um, just jump in save percentage in a goalie that you thought that would not even be a starter for you guys at all. More like an e-bug, if anything, from the Marlies.
Yeah, and Samsonov's drop off too is kind of crazy because like whereas Jack Campbell was struggling last year, him and Skinner back and forth, and they gave Skinner the net in the playoffs. Samsonov dismantled the Lightning in the playoffs, and then yes, he lost in the second round, but like he played well the whole playoff. So for him to have come back with no confidence to start the year and just have it shattered was bizarre. Like what happened in the offseason where his confidence got ruined, stuff like that, right? Like it was weird to me why he came back so shattered. Um, but let's jump into another goalie, Marc Andre Fleury. He played his 1,000th game the other day, and then tonight he tied Patrick Waugh for the second most wins in NHL history with 551. So great accomplishment, and I know we were talking about it before the game. If you have a chance, if you're watching, go look up Marc Andre Fleury diving at the empty net to save a goal, and then Minnesota going and scoring to tie the game. So he got this win. Incredible play by him. You don't see many 39-year-old goalies sprinting from the bench to dive and make a save, but he did. So I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on Fleury, but great to see him catch Patrick Waugh and probably pass him next week.
Well, like I said a few, I don't know if it was an episode ago or a couple episodes ago, but guy's just a class act, man. He's happy to be playing goalie still. So, I mean, to see him do that for his team is huge. It just shows you his commitment and love for the sport and how much the game means to him, right?
Yeah,
Flurry is
exactly.
him.
He had this really cool moment before the game too. Someone, I guess, well, I don't know if it was this game, but there was a social media video that went around where um, a guy was asking him. He said, "Hey, Marc Andre, can you give me um, permission to skip school today? Like, can you give me an acceptance video?" So Marc Andre Fleury said, "Hey, I give this guy permission to skip school today." Like, he's just a fun guy who likes to have fun. He loves to be at the rink, loves to interact with fans. He's always got that trademark smile on. So you just love to hear that he's still doing so good when a team like Vegas gave up on him, Pittsburgh gave up on him, Chicago rightfully moved him on, but even Minnesota's kind of using him as a backup and giving up on him, right? But he's always still just steady, happy Marc Andre Fleury, which is great to see.
Yeah, I mean, all these teams keep giving up on him, but he's still showing that, like, hey, I'm still a top goalie in this league. So good on him.
Exactly. Okay, let's jump over to some huge, huge news. The PWHL, Professional Women's Hockey League, officially began, and we have a lot of firsts that have happened in this league. I'm going to rattle some off and then we can talk about them. We had Ella Shelton, who scored the first ever PWHL goal in league history. The New York team won the first ever PWHL game versus Toronto 4-0, which then meant that Corrine Schroeder recorded the first ever shutout in PWHL history. Emmerich Mashmeyer stopped Marie-Philip Poulin, so that's Canada on Canada right there. Canada's top goalie versus Canada's top female player. Stopped Marie-Philip Poulin in the first ever PWHL penalty shot. Then we had Montreal win the first PWHL overtime game over Ottawa. Montreal over Ottawa in overtime. Anna Sofia Bettis scored the first ever PWHL overtime goal that led to that win. The PWHL first overall pick, Taylor Heisey, scores to be the first number one overall pick to score a goal in PWHL history. Also, the first goal in Minnesota team history and the first PWHL goal scored on United States soil because the other games were held in Canada. And they just tonight broke the record for women's professional attendance in Minnesota with 13,316 people in attendance. So lots to cover here, but it's great to see this league taking off. And man, these girls are running each other. This is a physical league. This is the NHL of women's hockey. This is what they've been saying they need to let women's hockey get to all along. I respect the cages because you don't want to have those girls getting their faces ruined. I get that. Guys are ugly. Girls don't need their faces ruined. But they are playing physical hockey. They're running each other, laying each other out. It's fantastic hockey to see so far, and the fans are showing up in support to let this league thrive.
Well, and it's awesome because you see some of these hits and you'd think that some of these would be called in the NHL and they're not being called there. So just letting them have fun with it is cool to see.
It's about time that they had this league started. Like, you know what? It's been a success right out the gate, and it's awesome to see, competitive women's hockey finally together. Now, I know there were some questions and rumblings going on the internet of like, why is there no logos? There's not really a lot of branding. Well, to answer those questions is that because the league is just fresh, right? They just started, so now they need time to kind of really fully get out that branding out there. So I can see within next season, you're going to start to see like Toronto or New York, they're all going to have their logos ready, for the team names and everything, and much cooler jerseys. I love every team's jersey. Personally, I'm a favorite of Montreal's. Montreal's jersey looks amazing. And to name Marie-Philip Poulin captain, like, awesome gesture. She deserves it. And I am all here for it. I love that the PWHL has been a smashing hit, and I hope for many more years of success.
Yeah, the captains are so well known. Like I think Boston's is Hillary Knight, and there is Natalie Spooner, I believe, is the captain of one. Like their captains are the biggest names in the sport, as it usually is, but they're representing the sport so well. And for the women's side, like it's just so awesome. I know I'm looking forward to following like all my sports apps now. I have tracking the PWHL. I got the scores. I got the rosters I'm looking at. Like I'm trying to see how this game grows to, so we can do our part and try and help grow the women's game because it's such a cool sport to see.
And it's crazy because Toronto's PWHL team, their season tickets went on sale, I think within an hour, sold out. Single game tickets within an hour sold out. And it was just unbelievable. Unbelievable. They were just selling out so fast. And I think I saw a video of Sarah Nurse. She was trying to get tickets for her family, but everything was just selling out so fast. So it's honestly, it's awesome to see.
Yeah, and it is for sure. And I think too, which is really cool. I know this has most likely happened on international stage because these women all played together, but it was also I believe the first ever professional game where a fiance assisted a goal on a fiance's goal because the two women on the team are planning to get married. So like that's another cool thing that you haven't seen in sports before is like a lot of these women are in relationships or married or they're even playing against their spouses potentially. So like it's really cool to see that the game's even growing on that side as well. The inclusiveness and all that is really being shown out in the PWHL because I don't think they're going to do anything stupid like the NHL and limit all their special jersey nights. As the league grows, you'll see some really cool special jersey nights, I think, come out of this league.
Well, and it's also awesome too to see because I know Minnesota, they play at XL Energy Center where the Minnesota Wild play, so you can get lots of fans in there. It's awesome to see, it's just, and the sponsorships are just absolutely incredible. You got like Canadian Tire, Tim Hortons all sponsoring this league, so yeah, it's a smashing hit.
Well, Minnesota, I mean, they just in general love their hockey, man. That is such a hockey-driven community out there.
State of hockey for a reason, right?
Exactly, and no wonder they show up. I actually didn't know that they weren't at the Golden Gophers arena, so that's awesome that they're at XL.
I'm honestly like I was talking with my girlfriend the other day. I was like, I'm generally wondering if even as soon as next year, like, would they consider expanding to like other cities now because of how much success they're having within the first week of the league, right? Like I know maybe it's a little too early to think,
I
of
think
an
that's just going to
expansion
come with
talks.
time. That's just going to come with time.
My
Yeah,
my
like I
only
would
thing is like yes, I think that they will, but it's going to have to come down because there isn't many foreign women in the league. It's a lot of North American skaters, which makes
I seen a
sense.
Czechia player
But
for Ottawa.
Yeah,
yeah,
no, there is
there's
the
a
few
Japan,
like
there's a
Swedish,
few.
Finnish. There's a few out there.
Yeah, but they're like, you know, Finland is one of the best women teams in the world, and maybe like they probably only have a handful of girls that came over, right? Like, they're moms and they have families and they have other jobs that they have in their native countries that they can't leave for. So I think it'll take a bit until you have like the majority, like if you until you have 70% of the best players in the world all in this league. I don't know if you can expand because it will make the talent pool weaker and weaker and weaker, but hopefully they can start to
But
grow it.
think Oh yeah, 100%. But think of this though, like they are inspiring the next generation of players coming up, right? Like, maybe we could see like a Calgary and Edmonton team or even a Vancouver team. Who knows, right? But I mean, like it's been so inspiring for the younger generation to finally, pursue their dreams of hockey, right? Like they know they can come play in a professional women's hockey league. That has been such a success. Yeah.
I agree. Like, if this sport, like, if this league continues to be as big of a hit as it is out the gate right now, I say within the next 10 years, I'm only saying that with, I don't know if it's going to drop in like revenue or not, but if like they see that insane amount in revenue, then yeah, they're going to be able to afford to bring in teams like a Calgary team, an Edmonton team, Vancouver team. But
Yeah,
again, that's just going to come with time.
they got to
And
get
Riley,
enough
you and I
money
were
for
talking
travel.
yesterday about it,
Yeah,
about how there used to be one, I think a year or two ago, a women's league here
yeah,
in North America.
there was one in Canada and one in the US and they were separate. And I did actually see I saw a tweet or an X post the other day, whatever you want to call it, where there was one female pro. She's the only one. I think there's been 6 North American pro hockey leagues. She's the only one that's played in every single one of the female pro hockey league. She played in this one, the Canadian one, the United States one. Then there was another one before the United States one, and then another one before that. And this is only in like a 12-year span. This is not like she's 40 something years old. Like she's still pretty young, and she's played in every women's professional league because there's been so many transpiring and changing. So yeah, I thought that it was pretty cool. But that's the other thing is like you got to make sure it lasts because the initial hype is cool and the initial support is fun, but continued support is the one thing that the women's game has struggled with, and I hope that they continue to get it. And it'll take more than just sponsors. It's going to take, butts and seats as they call it, and we'll have to hope that that can continue because it looks like awesome hockey, and it's only going to be better for everyone. Like you said, Dallas, about little girls growing up and having that opportunity. Like I know with none of us having kids, but if I had a daughter, I would want there to be a women's league that she could look to if she wanted to play hockey and say I can actually get there rather than saying I can only play hockey till I'm 18 and then it's just over, or
Well,
I could go to
exactly, right?
college
Continue your
and
hockey
then it's
career,
over.
yeah.
Yeah, like you don't want there to be a point where it's like and then it's definitely over, like then there's no next step. You want there to always be able to be a next step for the girls out there that want to play hockey, so
Just like
hopefully that
just
works
like
out.
boys, right? Like, as a kid you dream of, making the show to the NHL. Well, now the younger generation of girls, they can say, "Hey, I want to make the show, but I can make that next jump from juniors into the PWHL," right? So Hopefully
And
this can be a smashing success for many, many, many years to come.
how depressing is it to be like a little girl wanting to play hockey, and then you have like a brother that you can watch go pro, but you can't watch yourself make that step, right? So definitely a huge step to keep that dream going.
Well, yeah, there's that barrier, right? But we got to break that barrier, which is,
Yeah, and it's even starting to because I think it's Portland Winterhawks. They just had their first female drafted goalie. She was practicing with them the other day. So that's a good start to see too. But again, would she probably will never have the opportunity to make the NHL because she's the first to be drafted in the WHL as a female. So at least now she has a way to go a professional route, even if the WHL doesn't work out. And now she's eligible for the NHL draft. Even if that doesn't work out, there's the PWHL. So it's just all the way around. It's good for everyone. It's good for the NHL. It takes pressure off the NHL because there was always so much like, when can women play in the NHL? They have no real pro league. Now
Leon
that can
Reaume,
kind
for
of
example,
settle
to Tampa
down.
Bay, right?
Exactly. But now that can kind of settle down and give the NHL some ease that, okay, there's nothing that needs to be rushed. If a girl or female is truly good enough to make the NHL, she can have a shot. But now there's a place for like the pro league for women. So there's not a pressure on the NHL to like get women pro hockey anymore, which is nice.
Well, another thing that the NHL could do just to kind of help grow that sport too is, when the All-Star game comes around, they could have the best females from or one from
Mm-hmm.
each team coming into the All-Star game, right? Like that would be
True.
cool.
That'd be a
Yeah,
great
they can
idea.
piggyback support off them for sure. Like the
Yeah.
NHL needs to market and just advertise the shit out of it, right? Just help piggyback off because everyone knows the NHL is such a success, right? Everybody knows the NHL. So with such a big partner like that, partnering with, I think that the PWHL can have an even more of a success if they, just piggyback off each other, help each other out with support at least. You know what I mean? Advertising and because I know all the games are on Sportsnet and TSN right now, so
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully it gets more help from the NHL. We'll see. The NHL is always a business, and you know them. If it doesn't benefit them, they don't always do it. It's why they never started a women's national hockey league themselves, right? Because they didn't see the profit in. Well, look at that now. Seems pretty profitable out the gates.
and
But
that's
that's
why
what I mean with
this
it,
past yeah.
with like an All-Star thing though, because the All-Star is just for fun, right? It's for the
Mm-hmm.
kids, so like why not have, I mean, yeah, they brought in like Sarah Nurse and whoever the other year, but
Kendall Coyne Schofield.
yeah,
Yeah.
but to have like a female representing each team from the PWHL and like maybe making, Team Pacific or whatever, just stuff like that, to have one female on your roster, like that would be cool. It'd be fun.
I think so too.
And going back on that whole marketing thing, like I also noticed like this year's Winter Classic, even like when you say that if the NHL doesn't benefit them, like they'll just not really put in a lot of effort. But like I noticed with this year's Winter Classic, like hardly any advertisement, nothing leading up to it, hardly like documentaries like on the road series of like, leading up to it. Absolutely nothing. It was the worst Winter Classic viewing rating on television
Yeah, it
since the Winter
tanked.
Classic has came into existence. Like it, do you remember like when Washington and Pittsburgh would, play each other in the Winter Classic? Like bad blood between the two teams, okay? The 2011 Winter Classic was the most viewed Winter Classic. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? But like this year, I get it, you're trying to get the two newest expansion teams in there, but like you guys did not even help yourselves with that one. The marketing was absolutely horrendous and it just I don't know, it didn't look like it was a smashing success. So I think
You
with a
know
lot of
what though?
marketing things, they got to really do something better, man.
With that, I'm gonna call out NHL fans though for being a joke. Because all you see on social media when it's Pittsburgh again, Boston again, Chicago again, Detroit again, Toronto again in the Heritage Classic, spread it around to the league. We want to see more teams. We want to see other teams. Quit using the same teams. Okay, they did. And the fans didn't show up. They
That's a
didn't
good point.
watch. Right? Now, I was unfortunately traveling on the road, but I would have watched it if I was home and I was able to, because I was excited. I was literally, like you guys know, I was in Seattle at the Seahawks game right beside where they were playing. If we knew in advance, we would have bought tickets for that when we originally got the tickets months ago for Seahawks. We would have bought tickets and stayed an extra day, but we didn't. We drove home the day of the game. So, like, you gotta be more of a true fan. If you say you want to see different teams than a game that you asked for, essentially, right? The fans asked for this. They wanted different teams. They got different teams, and the fans again did not show up to support. And I think it's a joke because everyone who complains can shut up now. You know what I want to see now? I just want to see Boston, Detroit, Boston, Chicago, Boston, Toronto, Boston,
you know
Montreal.
what?
Like
You know what you just
back
did
to
there?
back to back.
You know what you just did there, Riley?
What?
You gave me a perfect example of Dallas. He's all for a rivalry. He wants rivalries, but he also is tired of seeing teams like Chicago always get it.
Mm-hmm.
But yet Chicago's one of the biggest teams that has rivalries.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna jump on that comment, Dakota. I like what you said, and I'm hearing rumblings that Chicago will be probably one of the contenders in the 2025 Winter Classic, only because the marketing on that is Bedard's on the Blackhawks and whoever they sign in the offseason this year, right? It'll just be a huge thing. And then I think it'll be their sixth or seventh outdoor game now for the Chicago Blackhawks, which would make sense. They're the original six team. And then jumping on your comment, Riley, yeah, the whole seeing each team over and over and over again. But like, if I had to ask you both right now, who would you, as NHL fans, would like to see in next year's Winter Classic, if you were to pick?
Well, there's a number of teams that haven't had it. Like, I don't think San Jose's been in one. Have they?
They've been in Stadium Series
Yeah.
jersey or Stadium Series in 2014 against the
Yeah.
Kings and Ducks.
Yeah.
And
So, okay,
boy,
so they had, but like
they had really nice jerseys that year. Just saying.
I know there's a couple teams in the league that haven't been in a Winter Classic, and Seattle and Vegas were two of them, and now they have been. But you gotta at least get the rest of the teams in the league that haven't. Just get them at least one game, so then their fan bases can feel included in this. But I don't know. At the end of the day, the NHL is a business, and who cares what the fans want when they say they want this change and then they don't show up for you. So next year it should be Chicago and it should be Detroit or Boston, right? Like no one wants it.
Or even
everyone will
Toronto
watch it.
again. Exactly, because they're there for the rivalry and that
Yep.
history of those teams. But yet everybody wants to see new teams in these things.
Well, and here's the beautiful thing is when they introduced the Stadium Series why do I keep saying jerseys? Oh my God. The Stadium Series, you got all these different teams. Like think of you, Riley. You got to see the Tampa Bay Lightning go up against a Western Conference team and the Nashville Predators, which was really cool. That was awesome to see
That
in the
was really
Stadium
cool.
Series. So I think with that implementation, they do get to see a bunch more broader range of teams. However, but for the Winter Classic, right? They only used to do just the Winter Classic, and then they introduced the Heritage and the Stadium Series. But personally, I would love to see, going back to you, Dakota, the rivalry, the Colorado Avalanche versus the Detroit Red Wings. That one of the most underrated rivalries in NHL history was dating back in the '90s. Claude Lemieux, Chris Draper, Darren McCarty. That rivalry was just bad blood, man. You know.
Do an alumni game before and make sure you bring 20 ambulances because those guys have bad blood to this day.
Oh yeah.
There would be blood spilled.
A Heritage Classic for me personally it could be any team that's been in the league for 20, 30 plus years, right? I'd be happy with any of those teams. It just seems like if you got a recent team, your ratings just drop.
Yeah. One, because they don't have as big a fan bases yet, but two, because Vegas sells out because of the traveling fans who come to Vegas and are there as a part of their Vegas trip. They're going to the games. And then Seattle is like the Seahawks. They have diehard fans, so people show up.
But from Canada.
When you get them on TV, like notoriously, their TV ratings are not high in the NHL compared to other teams. And part of that also, too, is Seattle being kind of Seahawks nation, right? Like they've had a football team there forever. That's kind of the market. And you have an NHL team that's there and starting out, but it's just kind of floating, trying to survive, right? Right now. They're big and they're not going anywhere, but they're also not the moneymaker team in that city.
Now, had it been different if it was Stadium Series related between Seattle and Vegas, I don't know. But there's just no history to make it a Heritage Classic to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, does Stadium make more money just due to the fact that they make really sick jerseys?
Oh
Good.
yeah, Stadium Series jerseys have always came out in full force with the creativity. Oh man, anytime you look at a Winter
No, I know, but
Classic
you get
versus a Stadium Series jersey,
Yeah.
money.
yeah, but that's obvious though because Heritage isn't going with the fancy stadium look. Heritage kind of
Mm-hmm.
has to stick to the heritage look.
Exactly. And like we talked about with, like, I didn't like Seattle Vegas jerseys because there really is no heritage there. But then you look at like the Montreals and stuff, it's like how many more heritage jerseys can they do? Montreal had the exact same jersey from like 1920 to 2020. Like there's a few iterations of difference, but there's not a lot.
That is
Yeah, I
true.
just mean like Seattle and Vegas just went with a heritage look. There is
Yeah.
no heritage with that team, but they went with what a jersey would look like if they were a heritage team.
Yeah, you got to give them props for doing their best just
Trying,
based
yeah.
off imagination,
Well,
but
and here's the
yeah,
here's the funny thing
that
too. Here's the funny thing too is that Montreal and the New York Rangers have met outdoors, not against each other, but they have been outdoors in these Winter Classics and whatnot. Montreal being one of the
yep.
only teams who hasn't very seldomly changed their logo and jerseys at all in their over 100-year history. Same with the Rangers coming in, I think, 1926. They have hardly
Yep.
changed their logo. I think maybe like late 80s, early 90s they did with the big Liberty, Lady
Yeah,
Liberty in the middle.
the
But still,
yeah, but the crest used to be like it used to slope more. It wasn't rigid where it was like the V and then the box. It was just like a slope at the bottom of the New York Rangers
mhm.
crest that they have now. That's the difference in the logo now.
But where I'm going with this though is though that when Montreal went outdoors, they literally kept it as if it was their away jerseys. However, with the New York
Yeah.
Rangers, the creativity behind their jerseys was amazing against Buffalo, against
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia. Like it's wow. They really came out with how simple their design is. They really just try to make it pop with a little bit of what they can work with. So I like
I
them.
guess that's just the talent of like costume designers in New York who they can look to for inspiration and for ideas rather than Montreal's pool of people they could have pulled for their ideas, right? Like really you just walk down the street in New York and you never know who's like just a successful designer, right? Because there's so many successful people there. So I think that they just had upper hand and it shows because yeah, you're right. I don't know if there's been a bad outdoor jersey for the Rangers in any situation.
Oh,
They always come
exactly.
prepared with one of the best jerseys. And again, it's pretty simple. It's still just blue, white, and red. Nothing else, and they make it work. So, got to give props where props is due to the Rangers on that one.
Gameday Tarps approved, boys.
Gameday Tarps approved. Okay, let's jump over to the World Junior Championships, which is now over. We had the quarterfinal results. Finland 4, Slovakia 3 in overtime. Czechia 3, Canada 2. 11 seconds left off the knee of Oliver Bonk. We'll get into that in a minute. USA 7, Latvia 2, Sweden 3, and Switzerland 2 in overtime. That took us to our relegation game, which was Germany 5 over Norway 4. That was a close one. Germany started the tournament so hot, almost got themselves relegated by the end of it. Not a good idea. Then we had the semifinals. Sweden, Czechia 5-2, and USA Finland 3-2. And then the World Junior Bronze Medal game, Czechia 8, Finland 5, and the gold medal game, USA 6, Sweden 2, with the last two gold and bronze medal games both ending in fisticuffs for both teams. So let's go all the way back to the quarterfinals where Canada lost and Slovakia lost. I want to talk about those two teams. Slovakia shot themselves in the foot. They chose in their final preliminary game to not play their starting goalie, and they lost. That took Slovakia from playing Latvia in the quarterfinals to playing Finland. If they played their starting goalie and he won, they probably would have moved on, and Finland probably would have been. Slovakia faces Finland, loses, get Finland started to get hot at the end, and that was the end of them. And then I think for us three, we've been talking about Canada pretty much for 2 weeks straight. We knew this wasn't the team. People keep making good points. No Bedard, no Benson, no Fantilli. Leno got hurt. Molendijk got hurt. They're playing. Savoy was hurt. They had to call up Furcus. But we've also talked about how the guys they left behind who could have helped this team. Now, they had some guys who did a very good job, but no Riley Heidt. I think that's the biggest one. I did see he scored like 14 points in the WHL while this tournament was going on. And when the game scoring, Jagger Furcus, I don't even know if he got a game. I think he just sat in the stands. He might have played the one game when Savoy was out. I honestly didn't get to see, but Savoy was playing injured, and basically you could tell come the quarterfinal game. And then you had this defense that was broken, really. They, unfortunately, Warren on defense, he got beat a couple times in that quarterfinal game down the left wing, and just like that, you have a guy who's just a step slow versus some really fast players on Czechia, and the Edward Chalet and Yuri Kulik, those
Top
guys.
scorer of the tournament, by the way, Yuri Kulik of Czechia.
So you get those guys and you give them an opening, and they took it versus Canada, and you hate to see the fact that they lost the way that they did. Like, overtime would have been better, but they kind of deserved it. The coaching, our Blazers coach was there, and then the head coach, I don't even remember his name now, Letang. It was something Letang. I don't know who he coaches in the CHL or who he coaches anywhere, but man, their decisions were frustrating. There was a lot of guys underperforming and guys down the roster that were performing well. They stuck true to their lineup, never switched it up, never gave guys a shot, and it showed. Like, Matthew Wood's a prime example. I'll just throw this out there. He played 3 minutes in the first period of the quarterfinal, I believe it was, and then he scored. And then he was basically stapled to the bench the rest of the game. He went up a little bit, like to the second line for 2 shifts, and other than that, he was just stapled to the bench.
I guess these coaches were
if a guy scores a goal for you, put him out there.
I guess these coaches were overhyping the roster that they wanted so desperately bad. Like you were saying, there was definitely a questionable snubs on this team that should have been there. Not only did Canada finish 5th in the tournament, who obviously shocked everybody, there's not even a single Canadian this year in the top 15 in scoring. The next closest is at 16, Macklin Celebrini, and he has 8 points. Like, that's it. Not even a single top scorer in the top 15 for Canada representing. Lackluster.
There lies the problem, too. Your 17-year-old player led your team, and you only got 8 points. Where was Geeky? Where was Savoy? Where was Minton? Like, we love Minton being a Blazer and unfortunately just being traded away. But where was he? He got the C. I think that was because of Clouston being the coach. Like, I just don't think it was the right call. I think that there was, I really think that Denton Matejchuk or Maverick Lamoureux should have been the captain. They logged like almost 30 minutes a night. But I just think that there was a lot of roster holes and no one stepped up.
There was definitely more deserving guys for the letter, but let's not forget also too, like, Clouston also traded Minton for a bag of peanuts, essentially. Like, you could have gotten a lot better haul for him too. Just ship him out to Saskatoon. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I'm not mad about that trade at all, because you know what? Saskatoon is a top team in the West right now, the Western Hockey League, and I want him to have another shot at another Memorial Cup.
And hopefully he will. USA, typically we knew they were going to steamroll Latvia, and then Sweden almost lost to Switzerland 3-2. That was a really close overtime game where Switzerland was carrying the play, and then one of their 16 or 17-year-olds took a penalty in overtime, and that sealed it. But other than that, Switzerland was dominating the overtime 3-on-3, and it was a super awesome game by them. They just couldn't get it done. It was a horrible way to see them go out, but
There was
They played a
also
heck
a
of a
lot of
tournament at the end.
questionable officiating during this tournament a lot too. I'm sure you boys noticed this. Like there was a lot of questionable
Hmm.
calls and
Well,
non-calls.
I think the whole world knows questionable calls in that
Yeah,
tournament.
the geeky hit for sure is a big one. Like being kicked out of that game. Luckily, that game was a win and it didn't really mean anything, but
I'm
it
su-
was just a big
I'm
hit.
surprised they didn't call the Rucker McGorty hit the other night against Sweden. He trucked that Swede player, and I'm surprised the Swedish officials weren't like, "Oh, you're out of the game, buddy. You're done." You know, I think it
Yeah,
was just against Canada that they were really like saying, "You're not going triple gold, buddy. You're out of here."
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like even if like the refs were in favor of Canada, I still don't see that roster being your gold medal roster.
No.
So and it showed obviously. So I
And
Oh
think
yeah,
there's
we
definitely
called it.
missed opportunity. Yeah, I think there's definitely missed opportunities for sure this
you
year.
don't have the Dylan Gunthers, the Logan Stankovens, or the Connor Bedards. Like it's just what they saw was star power, and yes, these guys are awesome in their respective leagues, OHL, Western Hockey League, and the QMJHL. But they just did not show up this year, which was shocking, but not shocking. They just didn't play with, to their full potential, I guess. Maybe there's just too much pressure. But also, I also want to mention for everyone out there, like, for these players to go and play their hearts out for their country and wear the maple leaf, you have no right in any way, shape, or form to be sending threats to these kids, for Christ's sakes,
Absolutely.
after they just played their hearts out for their country and to come home grieving that they will never hoist that medal. And you have the audacity to send threats to kids. You guys are low scum pieces of the earth. Disgusting.
Yeah, and I hope that people hear the way that we're judging it. Like we're trying to put more of the blame on the coaches for not adjusting. Kids are going to be kids and they're going to have reactions positively or negatively depending on pressure and how games go. And they could be a stud here and then they flop here. But it's up to the coaches to either shelter them and pull their role back a bit or push them with someone else or whatever to make it work. So
Oh yeah, like
we're
we're here
trying to put the
reviewing
blame on the
the
coaches.
gameplay of what we saw, right, of the tournament, and then there's the goofballs out there who are personally messaging these players and sending them threats.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wholly different ball game, and that is just totally unacceptable. And I hope they got reported for that because that is just child abuse.
Yeah, and like the fact, Oliver Bonk, he clearly had nowhere to go. That shot came through a screen off his knee and then went in the corner. Like, there's nothing he could have done. And people were just berating. He had to, like, block all his accounts because he was getting so much hate mail. Like,
These
people just
adults
need
need
to
to
calm
grow up.
down.
There's no place in this world for you to be, just throwing all this hate mail at these players.
Like, was it unfortunately ironic that Radek Bonk, the Czech legend, his own son playing for Canada, unfortunately had the puck go in off his knee versus the Czech Republic to give them the win.
Yeah.
Like that is a crazy 1 in a million scenario that probably will never happen again. So yeah, make a story about that, like because it's funny in a way. Like when he looks back on it, it'll be like a funny coincidence, right? When he's 35 or whatever. But right now, like give the kid some room to breathe. He's trying to play in the NHL eventually one day, and you're chastising him for one of the worst bounces that you could have ever seen in a game. And there's just nothing that could have happened. In his defense, and again, not really trying to be too critical, but NHL player Poitras was the one who missed the back checking assignment, came late and pushed the player and slashed his stick, which caused the puck to wobble towards Bonk's knee and then bounce in past the goalie. So really, it stemmed from the NHL player on the roster not picking up his assignment that led to that whole thing. If Poitras picked it up on the switch, it would have been fine, but he didn't. And here we are. Again, not he's still just a kid, but he is the NHL player on the roster. So there's some weight that comes with that as well.
Yeah, there's just again, there's no place for throwing hate mail out there. It's a game. Like, come on. You guys we won gold 2 years in a row, okay? We can't win it all the time, right?
They want it to be like '05 to '09 when we won 5 years in a row.
I mean, yeah, we do
Like,
have 10 gold medals in the last since 2005, so,
exactly. And like,
you know,
pick any sport where someone has dominated that much.
Sweden has
Like,
one,
it's not
the
very
US
often.
has 5, and we have 10. Be happy, you know?
And Sweden has won ever. Period. One gold medal ever. 48 years of the World Junior Championship tournament. One gold medal for Sweden. Like, it's talked about every year because it's ridiculous. They're coming up on 50 years and only winning once.
There's countries out there that have won one medal in general, and that could have been a bronze.
Literally.
Or have never won at all and are still fighting to stay in the tournament, right? Like, just be appreciative of, like, you know, you send the roster out there, they play their hearts out. Oh well, there's always next year, you know?
Yep. It's not like Canada's going to dry up talent. Celebrini's going to be back.
Like, think of Norway. They
Maybe.
Well,
fought and fought to get into the tournament this year, and they got relegated. They were winless. But you know what? Oh well, it was fun. They were there. They came. They saw. Move on.
well, you know what? Half of these kids are probably going to be playing for Canadian teams anyways. Look
Mm-hmm.
at Sweden. Willander, Leckermacky, both on Vancouver. So
Yep.
it's like you're going to hate your own country for losing, but you're going to be cheering for these players playing for a team in your country.
Exactly.
In 2 years. Like,
Yeah.
ridiculous. Okay, well, we got that off our chest because we were mad about that for a couple days. So we need to get that off our chest. But then we're going to go to another coach kind of doing something stupid. I know, Dak, we talked about this a little bit, but Coach Josh Holden got physically aggressive with Thomas Yurko on the bench at the Spangler Cup. And you and me both agreed, like, Yurko didn't have to respond the way he did with throwing his elbow when he grabbed him. And then then the coach pulled him back basically off the bench and yelled at him. But, like, as a coach, what are you doing in a Spangler Cup, which is extremely televised? You know it's televised. Why are you losing your composure? You want to wait till the end of the period? You just give it to that guy in the room if you have to. And until the end of the period, staple him to the bench. Be like, hey, we're talking after the period. You don't play again. Like, that sends a message. That'll send him, especially to an ex-NHL player like Yurko, that'll send a message, but don't have to grab a guy and rip him off the seat. Like, nothing should be that level of frustration in a hockey game, no matter what level. And it's the Spangler Cup. It's like the fifth best national tournament in the world. Like, it's not even necessarily good. There's a reason it happens in the NHL season because there's no good players that go.
Well, and you know what? I feel like, yeah, the coach probably did go a little too far. Or not probably, like, definitely went a little too far, but I think that was definitely a heat of the moment type thing. You know, I don't think he intentionally wanted to make it look that aggressive. And I hope for his sake, you know, they went back to the locker room behind closed doors and was like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's you don't want to see it.
I mean, that WHL coach this year, I forget his name already, but he got suspended for slashing that player's stick in a practice. Like,
Oh,
that's,
the Swift Current. Pretty sure it was the Swift Current head
yeah,
coach.
yeah, Swift Current coach. Yeah, like, so, like, where, I know it's a pro league and it's different, but like, where does it start and where does it begin? These coaches, what are they doing? It seems like every month we're getting a coach doing something that causes national attention and makes coaches look bad. Which, I mean, coaches have had a bad rep because a lot of them have done stupid things over the years, but right now it just is way more focused on.
Well, you know what? That could be also maybe when they played hockey, how they were coached, right? Where it's not televised or wasn't as heavily televised as where now. We live in a time where everything's televised and you got to watch what you do or say.
Yeah, and you know what? For me personally, I've never had a coach do it. Like, I've been yelled at. Don't get me wrong. Coach is just giving it to me on the bench, but it always ends with, "Sit down. You're not playing."
Yeah, you might not have experienced that, but you know, maybe some of these
Yeah.
coaches have
Oh,
experienced
for
that.
sure. Yeah, it's out there. Absolutely, you're not wrong. It's way more common than we think, for sure. Unfortunately.
But I
Okay.
mean, you could look at like I played football. My coach, he like, football coaches, they'll get rough with you. They'll get up in your pads or pull you by the helmet. So there's different ways of coaching, and it just seems like when it happens in one sport, it gets a little bit more attention.
Yeah, you know what? I want to comment on that because that's good. When you say that, I don't know why, but my brain automatically goes nothing wrong
Exactly.
on the football side. Like I didn't even mean to. I'm just gonna put that out there. Like my brain immediately just went, "That's football."
Exactly.
Like, and you're right. Actually, it shouldn't be football, but I don't know why. Let's go to another hot topic for us. Jason Zucker gets 3 game suspension for boarding Nick Cousins. Nick Cousins gets no disciplinary action for jumping into a defenseless head of Yusuf Alamaki, who also just had facial surgery about 2-3 weeks ago. So because we just talked about that, how he was mistreated in his situation with his face. Now he's back playing, and he has some idiot in Nick Cousins who, and we have full reign here, boys. Like an idiot. His hit on Goodbranson, his hit on Shifley last year. I saw Kevin Bieksa talk about this on Sportsnet, and now his hit on Valimaki. He's had no suspensions for any of those hits. Shifley was to the head, blindside, 5 seconds after the puck was gone. Goodbranson directly from behind the net, and now jumping, elbowing into Valimaki's head while he's on his knees. This guy's a goof. Like, you know what? He was really good for them in the playoffs. He's got to at some point be held accountable for his actions. And
There's no
when's
accountability.
that going to be?
He literally just face washed Yusuf Alamaki into the dasher board, and no repercussion. But no, Jason Zucker comes in and sticks up for his teammate. 3 games suspension, and then he's turtling. He's turtling on the ground when everyone's him versus the whole
Every
world
time.
every time. Like,
Every time.
you know what?
Good
I'm so
Branson.
sick of
Last
seeing.
year he got jumped after hitting Shifley, and then this year he gets hit, and he acted like he was knocked out on the ice, like he was going to be out for months. Glove fell off. He's laying on the
He
ice,
plays the
knocked out.
victim card too
Like,
often, man. I hate seeing Nick Cousins out there, man. It's just a total goon
yeah,
in all the wrong ways.
like he is a good player. If he just wasn't an idiot, he'd be really fun to watch. He's a grinded out player. He goes to the front of the net. He does so many hockey things right. But Bieksa said it best. He's a rat. He's one of these players, the Marchands, that are just a rat. And yes, like Bieksa said too. Oh, his teammates love him. He's a good guy. Oh, that's always how it is. But he's a rat, and the NHL has to do something to protect guys against these rats. Like, no way he didn't get suspended jumping into Valimaki's head.
Well, he's a rat in the wrong way.
Yeah,
Like, you
exactly.
can
Yeah.
be a rat and just get under people's skin, but then you're like, but he's the rat with almost like Valimaki's on his knees and his face is so close to the boards. Like, if Valimaki was standing up, I probably wouldn't have
It would have been nothing.
cared. I wouldn't have cared that much. But he's on his knees, and there's so much that could go wrong with him being in that position.
And Brad
Yeah.
Marchand, his nickname is the Rat, and he's okay with that. But you know what? Brad Marchand, I've never seen him do something as bad as what Nick Cousins had been doing recently, with that nickname. But like you said, Nick Cousins is a true rat out there. He's maliciously doing these dirty hits, and he's playing the victim card, and he's getting no repercussions from the NHLPA. Like, what is actually going on? Like, you strive to enforce certain rules, and yet you're gonna roll over and you're say, "Oh, well, we don't really think it was that bad." Well, you know what, buddy? When you're this far away from a goddamn dasher board and you get face washed by a guy leaving the ice and elbowing your head into the dasher board, that is extremely dangerous. I don't know what's going on, but they need to enforce these rules even harder, especially with Nick Cousins. You need to have to sit down with him or something because this cannot keep going on like this. Just disgusting play. That is not hockey. You're just out there to deliberately
And I have
hurt
two
people.
I have 2 things I want to add. Number one, remember just before the outdoor game in Edmonton and Calgary, remember Rasmus Anderson got a penalty for allegedly jumping into Laine's head, which injured Laine. That was a 3 game suspension, right? Where's
Yeah.
where's the even treatment again? That he jumped into a defenseless player's head. At least Laine was offensively coming down on Anderson when Anderson came high on him. Like,
Yeah.
they were both at least currently playing the game of hockey when he hit him. Valimaki was not playing hockey when he got hit in the head. Like,
Well, Laine's seen it coming too.
exactly.
Like, it was face to face. Valimaki had his back turned. Didn't see it coming.
And this
And then I
just goes
want to see
back to that
tonight.
attempt to injure topic we were talking about too.
Yep,
And
exactly.
Nick Cousins knows damn well each situation we just talked about, he knew damn well what he was doing. And he was still playing the
Every
victim,
time.
rolling over, oh, I'm getting repercussion for it from his teammates. Like, no shit, buddy.
And who got an elbowing penalty today for Calgary? Because I want to see what they give suspension wise for that play. I'm just going to look it up quick.
This is the NHL's philosophy. We'll give you a
It
41
was
games.
Elias Lindholm. I thought it was Elias Lindholm, and it was Elias Lindholm. So Cam York, I don't know if you saw this, Dak, if you were watching the game. Cam York came down the left boards. He dumped it in, and he kind of ducked. And yes, Lindholm came over the top. He hit him in the face right here and pile drived his face into the dasher. They called it elbowing to the head, and Lindholm had to fight that same play. And there you go, Cousins. Friggin' Elias Lindholm dropped the gloves, you puss. Like,
But you know what,
get
though? You
out
know
for it.
what? I bet Elias Lindholm barely gets a slap on the wrist because he's not known for that dirty play.
But that's what I want to see, though.
No,
If
I
they
know.
suspend Elias Lindholm, they should suspend Nick Cousins. Like, they obviously haven't, and they won't change their mind. But, like, someone's got to talk to the disciplinary committee and be like, what's the difference here? One guy was at least skating forward when he got hitting, more of a fluke accident where one guy was defenseless and the guy jumped into his head. Like,
Yeah.
where's the line? What's the cross? Someone tell somebody here, because
Oh yeah,
no one knows what's going on.
this is the NHL's philosophy. Okay, listen to this one. Shane Pinto, 41 game suspension, caught betting on not even sports, probably not even against his own team. But hey, we got a guy in Nick Cousins who is a
Yeah.
repeat offender in recent time with like within games of each other. Oh, nothing. Not even a slap on the wrist, not a public apology, nothing. And he's gonna turtle on the ice, play victim. Like, wow. This guy is deliberately injuring players and almost like doing very dangerous hits and nothing, absolute nothing in repercussion. That is some
And you know what?
extremely flawed.
I want to flip to same topic, but let's go to Minnesota, Winnipeg. Okay, a couple nights ago, Kirill Kaprizov gets injured because Brendan Dillon cross-checks him multiple times, and he's out long-term injured reserve. Brendan Dillon also, I believe, was the one who injured him last year, or Winnipeg was. Either way, twice in the last 2 years he's played Winnipeg, and it's knocked him out for a significant amount of time. So the next game, Ryan Hartman cross-checks Cole Perfetti in the face. Cole Perfetti is apparently on the hot mic, and he says after the game in an interview, Hartman told me he did it on purpose for the code. Right? Hartman got no disciplinary suspension because you can't use the audio in the games. It's in the PA contract, the Player Association, that the audio can't be used as suspensions because it's for fans. It's not supposed to be used for like a governing part of the game.
Even
But
though it's
like,
literal evidence, but okay.
exactly. But let's talk about teams, policing, because the NHL's not. Brendan Dillon did not get suspended for his cross checks to Kaprizov, and guess what happens? Ryan Hartman comes in and says, "You want to take our young guy out? I'm going to take your young guy out." Simple as that. That's how the game used to be policed. When it was, you're going to hit Wayne Gretzky, you're going to get absolutely destroyed by his line mates. There's a reason he had two fighters on his wings. It's because you don't touch Gretzky or you lose your face. So that seems to be the way that with the NHL not making up their minds. And even tonight, there was a non-penalty in Tampa where Tanner Jeannot got blown up from behind and he was out the rest of the game after a hit from behind. So, like, penalty because he ran over Poitras and Poitras was out the rest of the game. So, again, another thing where it's like they police it and someone else has to get hurt because they're not making the calls on the ice the first time or the suspensions the first time. They're dropping it everywhere, and now players are fed up and they're starting to take care of it themselves.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know that was a big rant, but that's just my my thought on it, at least, because it just seems like the officiating and the disciplinary community are confused about where they're going. What is
Well,
the line? What's over the line? What's not over the line?
well, eventually it's just going to come down to if the players are going to take it into their own hands, the NHL is just going to start handing out these suspensions left, right, and center. Well, it's like if everyone's going to do it, well, then everyone's going to get gone.
Exactly. I think, like, I get the premise of, like, if a player turns, then it's not on the guy hitting them from behind's fault, and I do get that. But if you just made boarding, right, a boarding penalty, if it came with a minimum 1 game suspension for every boarding penalty, watch how quickly the boardings would go down. Watch how fast guys would start to not, like, they would start to make sure that the positioning was 100% correct before they hit a guy. And again, I'm not saying take hitting out of the game. Keep it in the game. But a simple 1 game suspension every time you get a 2-minute boarding penalty. So you'd get like 2 minutes for boarding, a 5-minute misconduct, and a game misconduct, or whatever, or a 10-minute game misconduct, whatever it would be, right? Whatever the penalties would equal out to be. And you'd miss that game, and then you get a 1 game suspension on top of that. That would be enough for guys to smarten up, right? Because boarding penalties happen so often that it would really eliminate a lot of those penalties. And it would create pin hockey, right? Guys facing the opposite direction, you'd pin them from behind, try to get the puck. Or you'd wait till he actually opened up.
But you
wouldn't
think,
just tag him from behind.
but you'd think in good conscience, right? If you see someone on their knees and their face, like the nose to the chin, are in line with the top of the dasher board, like you'd think to yourself, I'm not going to want to cream this guy into the boards and possibly have him get surgery for facial reconstruction because I just shrucked him into the boards at like 15 kilometers an hour on skates. Like you'd think, in your head, you'd be like, no, I got to avoid a dirty hit like that because I could honestly ruin someone's career like that. No, Nick Cousins was just like, yeah, I'm going to take a chance. And he leaves his skates. That's the problem.
Yeah, he jumped.
He jumped and left the ice. I remember a couple years ago, you boys might remember this, when there were so many calls like that of players leaving the ice, and they were always calling that sort of thing. Now it's like it's hardly
and they never changed the rule back. You still can't leave your feet. So I just don't know how they missed this.
Well, look at football. You can't leave your feet whatsoever if you're trying to make a hit, or even if you're running with the ball, you can't jump up into somebody to try to avoid being hit.
Yeah, you can't even hit in an upward direction anymore, can you? Because your helmet could hit their helmet. You have to hit parallel.
Even in baseball, you can't truck the catcher no more. When you're sliding into the home plate, like it's just, wow, man. The NHL needs to police this.
But it's all for the better, though. It's all for the better.
Player safety.
If football major head injuries were always where the crown of the helmet came up into the face mask. There's no real protection here other than that little chin guard. And like we've talked about, that's a bowling ball on top of your head. So those guys are running 30 kilometers an hour, right? And they're just blowing up through guys' chins. Like, that's a safety thing. That's a good call. Same with baseball. Like, catchers are playing their position, and yes, it was kind of a part of the game. But at the same time, it's like, they did make it too so that the catcher can't block the lane, right? So he can't just intentionally get trucked to get the guy out. He has a lane he has to be in now. But, like, again, that was like the most head injured position in baseball because those guys were getting trucked and they don't really have head protection.
I remember.
At least not on the back, anyways.
Yeah.
I remember I was playing second base one night and I was receiving the ball from my right fielder and I came in. The runner did not slide into second base. He full on trucked me. He had his hands up like this and just bulldozed me, knocked me straight on my ass. Times have changed. I know player safety should be talked about more than how they're enforcing it in a rule book on paper. Yes, you can put it on paper, but it needs to be put in an action in any league you're playing in, baseball, hockey, football, whatever. It's just injuries can happen and a lot of it can be severe. What if you go back and hit your head? You're done. You know what I mean? Like, it's just things need to be taken into consideration more seriously.
Absolutely. And luckily the world is going in that direction, which is nice. The sports world. Okay, let's go to the Chicago Blackhawks. We got a myriad of news about Chicago. They claimed Joseph Magnoff waivers. They traded a 7th-round pick to get Rem Pitlick from Pittsburgh. Then they had Brendan Smith injure both Bedard and Foligno in the same game, fracturing Bedard's jaw, then fighting Foligno, who then fractured his finger on his left hand. So both of them are out. So Chicago's injured reserve list looks like this: Bedard, Hall, Tyler Johnson, Athanasiou, Bouvillier, Foligno, Taylor Radish, Anderson, Joey Anderson, and Seth Jones. So 2 questions now. If Bedard's out long term, they're saying 4 to 6 weeks. If it's 6 to 8, that's 2 months. Who is our Calder favorite? And the other thing is, who replaces Bedard at the All-Star game when they literally have no one on their team playing hockey right now? I said to you guys, Kurashev, he is second on the team in points with 22. He makes sense to me. But they have no star players
Korchinski
available. He's missed games, though, and he's only got like 8 points or something, or 10 points. He's quite a ways behind. Especially for All-Star status. Like, he's playing well for them, but for All-Star status, he's a ways off.
Fair enough.
Well, and there's people already arguing the fact that Bedard's getting too early of a look for an All-Star game, so that would only just increase people being mad if Korchinski got it.
Yeah, and I say to those people, shut up. Like, if a guy's an All-Star, a guy's an All-Star. Right? Like, and yes, I think you're right. They would go crazy over Korchinski because he doesn't actually deserve it. But listen to who Bedard is playing without. Taylor Hall, Tyler Johnson, Athanasiou, Bouvillier, who they traded because they were so injured. Foligno now, who he's been playing with. Taylor Radish, and Seth Jones. Who is there to help this 18-year-old kid? And he still has 33 points this year. No doubt he should be there, guy. Plus, it's also part fan vote, right? So,
Yeah.
Of course, he is the biggest thing surrounding that. Of course, he's going to make it. Let's not forget, everyone, that Crosby only wasn't an All-Star because Mario Lemieux was on the Penguins. You remove Mario Lemieux, Crosby's an All-Star that year. Like, it's that simple. There have been guys who had rookie years who should be, but they've had supporting casts who helped them get their points. Bedard has no one. He deserves 100% to be an All-Star this year.
And now,
if he can play.
And now, as it stands, the Chicago Blackhawks unveil their new name to the Rockford Ice Hogs because it's literally a full team of AHL players out there, minus Peter Mrazek. Like, there's nobody really to fully represent the Chicago Blackhawks, I don't think, at the All-Star game.
Is Mrazek an NHL player, though?
I'd say fringe starter.
Yeah, fringe. So, AHL starter, fringe NHL starter. Potential.
Fringe backup.
But I know what you're saying. Yeah, like, they basically are the Rockford Ice Hogs. It was their roster tonight had more or less salary cap than their IR had. They had like 33 million on injured reserve and 30 million on the ice. That's like Minnesota the other night, who had $50 million on IR and dead cap, because so they counted the Ryan Suter and Zach Parise dead cap. So they included that in like the amount of money missing from their roster. It was over $50 million in cap. No Kaprizov, no Zuccarello, no, I don't even remember. There was 8 guys, same as this list. I should have noted it down, but another team that was just injured, completely decimated by injuries. Like, they're basically the Brock Faber show, which is why my pick for the Calder now is Brock Faber. He's logging the most minutes of any rookie. He's leading all defensemen in points, I believe, for rookies. So if Bedard doesn't come back and his point totals slip, like, he deserves to still be a top 3. But if Faber continues what he's doing, I think Faber is going to take home the Calder.
Well, personally, I want to say that Connor Zary should still have a heavy look, but
he should.
Yeah, no, if Bedard's not back, then you're probably right with Faber being the next best option at that point.
I like Marco Rossi's odds, personally.
Those are like who we just named is basically if Bedard is out and then he gets dropped out of the top 3, which I don't think he will because he's the front runner now. those are basically the only three other guys that could win it. Faber, Zary, Rossi. Like there's no one else that's competing and dominating the way that those three are. So I think that it's definitely up to those three. Unless Brant Clark just comes in and scores like 40 points in the last 30 games of the year, like he has in the AHL, just dominating at a point per game. But I don't think that's going to be the case for him. And I think that they'll be looking at one of those three, Rossi, Zary, or Faber, to take the cake. Speaking of the Team Canada earlier too, we had guys like we were talking about Connor Geekie, we were talking about Matthew Savoy. They have been traded from the Wenatchee Wild, respectively. They trade Connor Geekie to the Swift Current Broncos for Josh Fluker, Sam Ward from Kamloops, BC, Maddox McGurty, a 2025 first, 2026 first, 2025 second, and a 2027 seventh round pick. So that is for Connor Geekie. And from the Moose Jaw Warriors, they receive for Matthew Savoy a 2024 first round pick from the Vancouver Giants, a 2027 first round pick, 2026 second round pick, 2024 third round pick, 2027 fourth, 2024 sixth, and 2025 eighth round pick. So two massive deals for the Wenatchee Wild. People were kind of confused because they are second in the American division, I guess. But it makes sense because look at the haul they just got. They just set themselves up for years of success. And Wenatchee's rebrand has been going really well. And you can tell that they don't want to win right now. They want to be in the WHL, but they want to have things that they can build around. And I think this was a great thing. They didn't have Benson to trade, which really hurt their stock. And they also don't have Lambos to trade anymore because Lambos went to Minnesota Wild's minor team, the Iowa Wild. So they were potentially going to have 4 tradable players this year, and they ended up with only 2. So they had to get what they could, and I think they did a great job building for their future.
Yeah, I mean, they really need to stock their cupboards. They only had 5 draft picks within the next X number of years coming up. They had to. When they were the Winnipeg Ice last year, they went all or nothing to try to beat Seattle and for the Ed Chynoweth Cup.
Yeah.
And obviously it backfired. So yeah, like you said, now they're thinking, rebuild. Like we have to have our cupboards restocked. So I mean, kind of questionable sending Connor Geekie to Swift Current. They currently sit 4th in the Eastern Conference. I mean, Swift Current as a small market, like it's good to have a guy like Connor Geekie come in financially. Like we alluded to earlier, like putting butts in seats. Like that's a guy that's going to want to get you more fans in the stands come playoffs for a little bit more of a financial standpoint. But as a small market, I mean, the Broncos, they're an older franchise, historic, but I mean, they would love to get back to their winning ways, but they're going to have to hurdle over teams like Moose Jaw, who just got Savoy. They are a powerhouse in the Western Hockey League this year. They got Matejchuk, Furcus, Yager, and now they got Savoy, like just scary. And then they got to hurdle over Medicine Hat, and then you got to hurdle over the top team in the East, the Saskatoon, right? So I like where that went. They're
Yep.
going to want to play contender. They're going to want to play underdog, and that kind of bolstered their forward group. It'll be interesting come playoff time. But I mean, for me personally, like I was just trying to say, was it's a little bit surprising seeing Swift Current go after a guy like Geeky. But you know what? Congrats. I mean, they got him for the right price, so let's see what they can do.
Exactly. And I even forgot to put this in here. I meant to add this to the notes, but the anniversary of the Swift Current Broncos bus crash just passed as well. So we should just throw our condolences out there to the families who still mourn their children from that, and to the team and the organization that, has to um, magnify that every year. This is such a tragic news. So I just thought we'd throw that in there. I totally forgot about the whole, um, the Broncos 4 that passed away. So just throw our condolences out there right now in the middle while we can, just because we know that anniversary just passed. But you're right, Dallas. I mean, Geeky, he hopefully he's enough for that team, but he wasn't even enough for Canada. Obviously, the WHL is a lot different, and he's a pure sniper, and these goalies, they're not ready for him in this league,
Yeah.
but hopefully he can do that. They split up Sam and Matthew Ward. I know the Ward family personally, so it's kind of sad to see that the brothers got split up after only being together for such a short time. But I know that they'll succeed in their own ways on their own route. And then yeah, Savoy. I would argue that Savoy has definitely the better team for sure. Like the list that you named off there, those are four, and Maverick Lamoureux. Like we're talking four prime NHL players in the future.
Maverick Lamoureux is not in the WHL.
Oh, sorry, Denton Mateychuk. Thank you. Sorry, I mixed them up. Yeah, Denton Mateychuk. Sorry, I was thinking D partners on Canada and I mixed them up. Yes, Denton Mateychuk. Sorry, being the captain there or whatever.
Yeah, and Moose Jaw, yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, those guys, that group of guys is a better group than what Swift Current can put on the ice. But there was one other trade that was kind of big, and that was Alexander Suzdalev to Saskatoon and a 2025 6th-round pick for Zach Moore, Samuel Brown, Dayton Deschamps, and a 2025 first, 2025 third, and 2025 fourth. And I think it was it Sudzalev tonight the other night that scored that unreal goal?
You're thinking Igor Sidorov of Saskatoon.
Sidorov. Okay,
yeah.
So it wasn't him.
Another stud on Saskatoon.
That was an unreal goal. I have not
behind
seen
the
a goal
back
like that in a game.
It was crazy.
Yeah, full behind the back. Like breaks his shoulders and everything to make that happen, but it was beauty. All right, we talked about Bedard being an all-star. Let's talk about the rest of the all-stars. So we have Carolina, Sebastian Aho, Islanders, Barzell, Penguins, Crosby, Sabres, Dahlin, Red Wings, DeBrincat, Devils, Jack Hughes, Columbus, Boone Jenner, Philadelphia, Travis Konechny, Tampa, Nikita Kucherov, Toronto, Austin Matthews, the Bruins, David Pastrnak, Panthers, Sam Reinhart, the Rangers, Shesterkin, Canadian, Suzuki. What do we think about the East? Do we think anyone got in when they shouldn't have? Do we think that anyone got snubbed? What are our thoughts on the Eastern Conference?
I think Eastern, they probably made all the right moves. I mean, people probably would have liked to seen Ovi over Tom Wilson, but
yeah, you're right.
Obviously, with Ovi's performance this year, it's probably not up to all-star status, I'm assuming. So
he doesn't want a pity vote either.
Yeah, he also publicly said he'd rather the time off too this year.
Yeah, which makes sense because he is just starting to heat up now, which is good, but he will definitely need a little bit more of a break. He's been going for like 20 years straight. He needs to not play when he has the chance to not play.
Well, think of this though too. Crosby's on like a 90-plus point pace right now, and he's more than happy to go to another All-Star game. I mean, he's got I think over 10 now. Like it's just he's still going strong at his age too, and they're almost the same age if they're not. Like
yeah, there's 1 year age difference, I believe. Just a couple months.
A clear-cut personal favorite I like is Florida representing of Sam Reinhart. He just scored a hat trick tonight against Colorado, and boy, what an absolute just treat it has been for Florida having Sam Reinhart on that team, and hopefully they can re-sign this guy because oh boy, he has been killing it.
But
for Florida Panthers.
That's what I wonder though. Is it good or is it bad? Because when they traded for Sam Reinhart, they were looking at second line Sam Reinhart. Yes, you always want players to overperform what you get, but this is his contract year.
Which is typically when players like to show up.
Exactly, but what's he going to make? 10? But is he going to make more than Barkov? Like, probably not. So
I'm going to say 8 or I'm going to say 8 or 9, honestly.
I know, but what will someone pay for him on the open market?
No, I bet there's teams with... Well, I mean, now look at what we're hearing with Toronto. We're hearing that Nylander's probably going to ink that 11.5. So I know I was saying Chicago should have went for him, but maybe now Chicago should look in their Sam Reinhart direction, and maybe they should try to outbid Florida.
To be honest, I couldn't be happier if Toronto signs Nylander to 11.5. Like, do it. Put $40 million into 4 players. Please.
Yeah,
50.
Trey. Let's salary cap strap another team.
Another team. And maybe the owners are on him saying, "Hey, we want to keep this guy. Like, make sure he stays here. We'll pay whatever." But good luck next year when 5/8 of your contract money are tied up in them. Goodbye Domi. Goodbye Brody. Goodbye Bertuzzi. Uh, who else is a free? They have so many free agents this year. Like, good. Here comes second line right winger Ryan Reeves next year. Like, that's the kind of cap they're gonna have. Like, they're gonna have no money for any of these guys.
They're gonna have to sign a lot of vets to minimum contracts just to build around their guys.
They're gonna have to do like the Tampa special, which is convincing good players to take $800,000 contracts in their 35 to 40-year-old range to come in and play the role, because that's the only option they're going to have.
Well,
like, that's why Tampa was able to do it. Zach Bogosian, $800K. Perry, $1 million last year. Maroon, $1 million. Like, they just made these guys float at the bottom.
well, again, how much of that money is these Toronto players actually going to see once the tax man comes knocking on their door? Because we all know the tax laws in Canada, and especially Ontario, so how much of that $11.25 million contract will Willie Nylander see at the end of the day, right? Probably 8 or 7 of it.
The calculation is like six
Even
and a half.
even fucking worse.
It's like 46% tax or something in Ontario, I believe.
It's criminal.
That much money. Like, when you're in that tax bracket, it's like 46%, which is just crazy. It's same as California. California is like almost 50%. It's like 48 or 49% tax. So it's a terrible place to be. Them, I have heard California, New York, and Ontario are like some of the worst places to play as an NHLer, because you're just you look like you're making the big bucks on paper, but you're at least slashed in half.
That's why they love Texas
Plus
and Florida,
your living
man.
expenses. Plus their living expenses, they waste all their money on buying a house in New York, buying a house in California, buying a house in Toronto, all some of the highest living places in the world. Whereas you go to like Columbus, Ohio, a little bit better taxes, I believe, but way cheaper housing. You're buying like the same house as a guy in New York on the outskirts of the city who's paying $3 million. You're paying like $400K in Columbus. Like, there's a lot of benefits for playing in smaller towns with less tax things like Florida and Arizona.
That's probably why half these guys get TV analytic jobs afterwards when they retire, is because they got to pay the bills somehow, or you know what I'm saying? Like, they got to keep working.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the West. Western Conference. We have Chicago Blackhawks Bedard, if he's healthy. Kraken, Oliver Bjorkstrand. Vegas, Jack Eichel. Preds, Philip Forsberg. Jets, Hellebuck. Sharks, Hurdle. Canucks, Quinn Hughes. Minnesota, Kaprizov, if he's healthy. Coyotes, Keller. Flames, Lindholm. Avalanche, Mac Dog. Oilers got McDavid. Then Dallas has Ottinger. LA has Talbot. St. Louis has Thomas. And Anaheim with a surprise Frank Vetrano. So, any snubs here? Anyone you think who didn't deserve it or had should have been someone else on their team? Let's go through the West.
Well, Calgary personally probably has like 5 better players they could have put at that position.
Yeah.
Uyghur, Rasmus, Markstrom,
Kadri. People were saying
Kadri.
And Coleman.
Oh,
was
definitely
a big favorite.
Coleman.
Yeah.
And you know what? We want to talk about rookies. Zary. They could have put Zary.
Zary should have been Calgary's representative.
But then you hear that, maybe it's a trade tactic for Calgary sending Lindholm. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. Get him around all the GMs. Start talking shop.
I think
saying he wants to go to a team.
I think Brett Kulak should have been Edmonton's representative.
There's no way. Okay, McDavid went from 112th to 3rd in the league in scoring. Like, that is unreal.
Yeah, get good, buddy. You're still not first.
That's done it. 112th to 3rd. Come on, I bet that's never happened other than when a guy's been injured for half a year and then climb the rankings faster. Like, come on. 112th to third. He's getting like 7 points a night some nights, like once or twice this year. Like, he's been unreal this second quarter of the year.
Still hardly
He
over
has
a
been the
500
best
record,
player.
though, you know. I know, another one-man show, really.
Yeah, pretty
Cooch,
much.
Cooch and
And this
McDavid
is
are the one thing they have common is that their ships are sinking. However, they're still finding a way to float to keep their team relevant, and yet they're scoring at an unreal pace. So they're both a one-man show, really, if you think of it. Just scoring at unreal paces.
What's Colorado? 53 points in 40 games. Tampa's 43 and 41, and Edmonton is 39 and 35. But Colorado has had their woes, like tonight. We don't want to talk about that.
Oh,
Even
I
though
do
Tampa
want to
got blown
talk
out
about
tonight,
they collapsed against Florida. They tied it 4-4 because of Jonathan Duran, the beauty he is, having a resurgence, playing with his old teammate Nathan McKinnon, and then they decide to pull the goalie twice after they just got scored on an empty netter. And they're like, yeah, we'll just rewind that and do it again because it definitely worked the first time, right? Got blown out 8-4.
Realistically though, you guys just got hot. In their last 10, you're 7-2-1. If you take away those games, you guys were 18, 10, and 2. So really, you had a closer record than you do right now, which is good. You guys are playing good right now. And obviously that's because McKinnon has just stepped it up to another level and led this team after. But it took Taze yelling at them. It took them having some really interpersonal conversations.
Still no
And then
captain.
you texting me every day. You texting me every day about Jonathan Duran being a stud when he sucks.
God, no,
But,
man.
I mean,
He's got more points than Jonathan
he's
Huberdeau
had
right now.
2 good games.
Whoa,
He's had
we're
2
not
good
even
games.
talking about Huberdeau, bud.
Oh, I'm just saying. But you know what? Jets are
Hold on,
winning
what
the
is it?
Central. I'm calling it now. Winnipeg Jets are winning the Central. They're too good. They're much better than Colorado too. They play a
How many
full
points did
full
Uber
200
get
feet,
today?
man.
1. Jets are good. You're not wrong.
And they're without Kyle
It seems
Connor.
like they've settled down. They've settled down since they've got Hellebuck and Scheifele locked down. It seems like they're whatever they did with their team, getting rid of Wheeler, Dubois, whoever else they all shipped out. Obviously, those were the problem guys, and they've got it sorted out now.
And it's good to see, honestly.
Yeah, the Jets deserve. I like the Jets. I've always liked the Jets since they came back. So it's good to see, especially because they had that whole. Here's another, like when we were calling out the fans earlier, because the Jets were at their lowest attendance rates their whole time they've been a team, and it was like, you guys complained for how many years you didn't have a team, you got it back, and now we're just over 10 years into you having the team, and you're not showing up to the rink anymore. Like, come on, fans, what are we doing here? So, at least
Right, and then they're gonna play the victim game when the team goes back away.
Back to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Go Thrashers! Go Thrashers!
Yeah, what a joke that'll be if that
I
comes
love the
back.
Thrashers.
There's no way Atlanta makes a comeback.
Bettman has said
I hope
Atlanta's
not.
in the mix again.
What, third time's the charm?
Yeah. And if so be it, 4th.
No, God, no. You need
Just
to
if they fail
retire
3
that
for sure.
down.
Just stick with your ECHL team, man. The Atlanta Gladiators. We don't need them again.
I think they're just talking more so about the fact that Atlanta's growing as a city and that it could probably take on a team now, but who knows?
Give it up.
Yeah.
That pipe dream's
Go
long
Thrashers.
gone.
That's all I have to say.
Gameday Tarps not approved.
1/3 approved? We'll call
Yeah,
it.
and the other 2/3 are like,
33%
nope.
approved.
Yeah. I'm like one of the only people in the world. There's like that one lonely Atlanta fan.
I liked Atlanta, the team. Like, I liked the Thrashers when they were a team, but they don't need a team.
You know, I'd honestly be happy if they sent them anywhere, but called them the Thrashers and rebranded that team back to life with those unis and everything. I would be fine. I don't care where the city is.
The Salt Lake
Just
City
bring back the
Thrashers, man. That'd have been
That's all I care
sick.
about. Sure, do it. That's dope.
Quebec City Thrashers.
Do it.
I think that'd be a
Although
slap to
we
the
all know,
face
like
to Nordique fans.
the fans there would go crazy. They'd be like, "No, gotta be the Nordiques."
Yeah, but the Nordiques are owned by Colorado.
Yeah, but they could buy them. They could buy the rights. The NHL could merger a deal.
Well, I guess would they be able to use the name Nordiques, just not the logo?
No, I'm sure they could through the NHL would be like, "K Colorado, like you guys rebranded. You chose not to stay the Nordiques. This was their franchise because the the Jets came back, even though the Jets are in
Yes, but
Arizona.
the Jets couldn't use that logo though. That's why they have a
Yeah,
different
so
logo.
it could be that, but really you could do a different style of fleur de lis, and it wouldn't be the same logo, and or you could do the igloo, different, or just do a fleur de lis instead of an igloo. Whatever, they can make it work. If they come back, they'll make it work. They'll be the
I like
Nordiques. There's
how
no way
the
they
retro
won't be.
reverse, like when Colorado did it in their color scheme with the fleur de lis, they didn't, pay homage to the blue and the white. They did it with the maroon, burgundy, and white, which I thought was pretty sick. But they kind of
You would,
merged the
Homer.
two.
Just kidding. Yeah, I like that joke.
Well, what'd you say?
I said you would, Homer. I'm just kidding.
Hey man, I know a good jersey when I
I
see
like
it.
it was one of the nicest jerseys
One of the better
of the
retro
reverse
reverse, I
for
will say
sure.
that. Minnesota's was the
All right, let's
best.
finish this guy up. We got game day reviews. Dallas, you are on the Florida Panthers through the randomizer. Dakota, you are on the Edmonton Oilers. I am on the Detroit Red Wings. Who wants to go number one? Numero uno.
I'll go.
Go for it.
Well, Edmonton's right in the same place Calgary is, which is like I think 11th in the West and tied for 5th in the Pacific. So they're also just kind of right in the middle of just being that playoff team. But I mean, Edmonton has completely been turning themselves around as of late. Obviously, with McDavid coming in hot, trying to get his team going. Actually, tonight Hyman just got a hat trick. So, I mean, Hyman's been unreal. McDavid's been unreal. Bouchard has come out and been unreal. It's honestly just going to come down to they need a goalie now.
Yep.
So
they're a good team. They just need a goalie. They're a goalie away.
And not even like
they're
I think
Aiden Hill away.
Well, an Aiden Hill, I mean, I don't think they're going to be looking for guys like Markstrom, maybe a Vladar, but maybe they want a little bit better than Vladar. I don't think they want a guy to come in and take the starting role over Skinner. I think they want to have a goalie to, split it, but like have the trust. Like they probably would love to have a Swayman and what's his name, Swayman and Allmark situation where they have two goalies that they could rely on to get a win any given night.
Well, we can even look at some teams here that they could get goalies from. Like, what about Montreal, Jake Allen? That's a good option.
There's Allen.
Elvis Merzlikins in Columbus. Then in the West, there's Fleury in Minnesota. We've mentioned Fleury multiple times because they're below them in the standings. We have Gibson in Anaheim, Mrazek in Chicago, and Kakinen or Blackwood in San Jose. Like, there are options for goalies.
The only reason why I don't see them going for a guy like Gibson, though, is that he's still young enough to be considered an elite starting goalie.
Yeah.
And I don't think you want to take that away from Skinner. And I don't think Edmonton would I think they'd have to give up too much than what they'd want.
Realistically, in a Gibson trade, Skinner is going the other way. Like, to make it work, and then Campbell would be your backup, which would take all the pressure off.
I think that would still be a bad idea, though. Because then again, you're just having the same situation of having Skinner, but a slightly better goalie. And you'd still have a bad backup.
Yeah, I just don't think there's any way that they trade Campbell's contract. That's my only thing. If they want to alleviate a goalie position, it's going to have to be Skinner if they're going to move out an NHL goalie. And if you're going to move Skinner, you might as well get John Gibson. At least he's
That's if
better.
Gibson wants to play in Canada.
True, that is. But playing with McDavid every night's kind of a little bit of a bonus.
I would probably do it, but I don't see Edmonton moving on from Skinner right now.
Yeah. No, like they won't. I know they won't, but that's where my head goes at least. Other than that, though, they still have a ways to climb. Like you said, they're 2 spots out of a wild card. They're behind Arizona and Seattle. So actually, they're ahead of Arizona. It just hasn't changed here.
Oh, I guess they'd be ahead of Calgary now too.
They are in a wild card spot. I'm wrong. They are in the second. Once the points update, they will be jumping Arizona and Seattle to be in the second wild card spot behind Nashville. Like it is a huge race. So basically, Nashville has 45 points, and that's 4 points ahead of anyone else. But you got Seattle 41, Edmonton 41, St. Louis 41, Arizona 40, Calgary 39, Minnesota 38, all vying for that second wildcard spot right now.
Because they're in a race, but I think Edmonton's just going to start climbing.
I don't know. Well, Seattle's on a 6-game winning streak, and Edmonton's on a 7-game winning streak. Like they are running side by side each other for who's going to flinch first. And in the last 10, Seattle's 8-0-2, and Edmonton's 7-3. So like both of them, like Seattle's got 100% points in games. Not 100% of the points, but every game they get at least a point. So they're flying in their last 10. And that, even them winning 6 and Edmonton winning 7 in a row, still has them 4 points back of Nashville and 5 points back of the LA Kings in their own division. Like, even though they're doing that good, they're going to have to at some point do this exact same run again just to get up near the third place. So Seattle can't do it. That's my guess. Seattle, they're going to drop, but that's tough for Edmonton. That's a big hill to climb. Out of their next 30 games, they have to win 20 to make it.
You know what? That might just be their mindset. With the team they have, that's got to be their mindset.
True. And I mean, that makes you think Calgary's probably done, which is why when we saw today, Hanifin resigning, maybe, not officially, but maybe resigning, why? When you're going to lose Lindholm or Markstrom or both or Tanev, all these list of guys we've talked about numerous times.
Yeah, but you know what, though? Hanifin's still a guy that is what they want in a return, though. Hanifin is still that type of player. He's young enough, and he's a guy that you would want to build around. So that's why I think Calgary's we can trade everybody else, but Hanifin is still a guy that suits what we want in this franchise.
What if you guys did the exact same thing you did with Dougie Hamilton? What if you did send Hanifin to New Jersey, and you did Hanifin for Nemec and Holtz? Just like you did Dougie for Hanifin and Lindholm.
But you know what? I think that's New Jersey. That Calgary might offer that. But does New Jersey say yes to that? As much as they need a defenseman, are they willing to give up that for one defenseman?
Fair enough. I would be. Hanifin is guaranteed now for their playoff team. Where are they? New Jersey is in the first wildcard spot right now in the East. So, the East is just the same. Just outside of the wildcard, Tampa 43, Pittsburgh 42, Washington 42, Detroit 42, Montreal 39, Sabres 38. All outside of the playoff window and all back a couple points. Well, only back 1 point on New Jersey is Tampa, but 3 points back of Philly. It's just wild, man. I don't know if there's been this much parity in the league. It's so much fun.
All right, I'll take the reins on Florida.
New Jersey might. Go for it.
All right, so Florida Panthers coming into this season, they got some big shoes to fill, boys. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals last year, and they ultimately did not win against the Vegas Golden Knights. They currently do not have first 2 rounds of picks this year, nor do they have a first next year. So maybe they might do some trading. They might trade Reinhart for some picks if they don't feel they want to re-sign him. Or their biggest hurdle this year is definitely trying to engage in trade talks, engage in negotiations of signing an extension. I mean, they got 1.5 million in cap space as we speak. I can't really see them making too many moves. Come deadline, we brought up Nick Cousins and the bullshit rat plays he's been doing. Disgusting. I think he is a terrible hockey player in the sense of the fact that he loves going out there and injuring other players. You know, you can claim he's a good hockey
Right.
player. You know what? Yeah, he's on an NHL roster, but you know what? He has no regard for player safety. Making rat plays as what he's been doing in recent time, like just unacceptable, inexcusable. It should not be in the National Hockey League, and I think the NHL should uh, throw some repercussions his way. So as
Not
far as
every
the Florida
NHL
Pan,
player deserves to be there.
yeah, well, and
That's for sure.
bring up a rookie and place for him and terminate his contract, you know, or send him down. You can sit in the farm team until your contract expires, or you can learn to be a decent human being, not go out there and try to hurt other people on the ice deliberately. So enough with that rat.
Yeah.
Florida, they're looking good in the East. I mean, you know, they're going to be another playoff team this year. So you got Sam Reinhart, who scored a hat trick tonight, like Alexander Barkov, Carter Verhaeghe, even. You know, Barkov has been steamrolling in recent time now. He's been picking it up. Happy for him. And Carter Verhaeghe, you know, love the guy. Great hockey player. You know, Toronto should never have gave him away, boys.
Same with Tampa.
Same with Tampa. Sergei Bobrovsky, killing
We
it.
just couldn't re-sign him.
Still no word on Spencer Knight, though. We are still not sure when he is going to make it back to the National Hockey League. I think he's still in player assistant program. But, I mean, we'll see. But Sergey has been holding the net, holding the fort for him, so good for him. Florida, all in all, is
I
looking good.
think he's back playing, not back with Florida. So they have Stolars as the backup,
Yeah.
but I believe he's back in the AHL. He started the year there.
hmm
He said that he was grateful just to be able to play hockey again.
Oh, of course.
So, yeah, so hopefully he can make it back. But I think they're doing the right thing, taking it slow with him. Plus, they're only 2 points off of Boston and New York for first in the East. It's not like they're really needing to rush his progression right now, which they did originally, which has caused these issues.
Or even to be rushing into any moves to this team. I think Florida wants to continue being a playoff team. I think. I mean, you got guys like Kachuk, Barkov, Bennett, Reinhart. I think you want to keep that core of forwards along with, what's his name on Ekblad? Yeah, Montour. I think they want to stick with those guys going forward. If they don't continue being a playoff team, I think you lose most of those guys.
Yeah.
I don't see Kachuk wanting to go to a team that's outside of a contender.
Oh, Kachuk's first year, they went to the Stanley Cup Finals, right? I mean, Bill Zito, I think he'll be a conservative buyer come deadline, but we'll have to see. I mean, yeah, they're still competitive. They're still competitive as hell.
If they make moves, they make the right moves to make sure that Reinhart stays to this team.
100%.
I think.
I'd like him to resign. He's having the best time of his career there.
If I were to pick a team in the next 5 years, I would say to win the Stanley Cup, guaranteed, I would pick the Florida Panthers in the next 5 years for sure. Yeah. Their team is made for that. They're just the right age. They're literally like, I know because I'm a Tampa fan, I use it all the time, but they're literally at the point where Tampa was, where they flipped the switch. Like that's exactly where they are in their progression.
Well, and to have no first rounds, like you said, Dallas, I'm pretty sure even 2026 they don't have. So the next 3 years are first.
They have a 26.
And unless the 26 I'm thinking is conditional for Calgary. Yeah.
But I like what you said though, Riley. I mean, like Florida has been irrelevant for so many years. Like, and now, like you said, they flipped the switch, and now they are an extremely competitive team. You know, they have great hockey players on their team, and Matthew Tkachuk, Barkov, Verhaeghe, Montour, and Ekblad, and Reinhart. Like, it's just they are. I would say, yeah, in the next 5 years, they could be a Stanley Cup champion too. Like, it is fun to be a Florida Panthers fan. and I'm speaking for them because I'm sure they'd
Hmm.
say the same thing. Like it's fun to watch hockey in Sunrise, Florida, and that's I'm happy for the fans. They
And the
deserve it.
thing it and the thing is, Florida's a team that star players are gonna want to go to.
Oh, absolutely.
Regardless of picks or not, I think Florida uh, is a highly I guess highly wanted place to play for right now. All these young guys are gonna want to make the money they can, right? So if you're good enough to be a five to $10 million player, why not want to play for Florida?
Because you're going to keep all of it
Exactly.
with their tax laws.
You're gonna
Yeah,
keep it all. All right, I guess I'll go to Detroit. Um, like I said, they're 1 point behind Tampa, 2 points behind New Jersey for a wild card spot, and they are kind of struggling as well. Still, Patrick Kane is starting to fit in really well. The team is their star players are gelling, but they definitely seem to be lacking the depth, and it seems to be like their biggest problem is goaltending. They do not have a goalie with 10 wins yet. Husso 9, Leon 7, Reimer 3. They don't have a goalie that has won 10 games this year yet. I think this is a team that could be in on a John Gibson. They don't have a starter, and they don't have a young guy who's looking like they came up. They tried to give Ville Husso the reins when they got him from St. Louis. Didn't work out. So, who do they look to next? I'm sure they were thinking about Hellebuck, trying to get the American guy back home. I think he was a Michigan guy too. Could be wrong. But bringing him home to America. So, John Gibson could be that guy that they're looking at to say, okay, we're fine trading Ville Husso. They have prospects coming out their
picks.
ears. They have Edvinson. They have Palika, Sandin Palika. They have Wallander, right? I think his name is Wallander, not Willander.
Yeah,
Wallander.
I think so.
Like they're who do they even have on their NHL team? They have a couple young guys playing right now. Maybe not. Doesn't look
Well,
like it.
I think Detroit could definitely land Gibson, given
They
the
could
right
make it
price.
work.
And
And
I think he would suit Detroit, and you don't have to worry about a starting goaltender for years because Gibson's still young enough to be your starter for the next 5, 6, 8 years.
I also will chime in on that, Dakota, and I'll also say in terms of goaltending, if they play their cards right and develop him fairly decent in Grand Rapids, I think Sebastian Cossa can be their starter within the next few
mhm.
years and be a solid goalie for years to come for the Detroit Red Wings. He is a phenomenal goalie. He played amazing for the Edmonton Oil Kings of the Western Hockey League, so I think they got an amazing
And
prospect in Sebastian Cossa.
he continually pops up on my X feed with highlight reel saves. Like, because obviously we follow on our Gameday Tarps Twitter, or X, the Grand Rapids Griffins, because we do a lot of AHL talk here too. And he's always popping up with big saves for them, like once a day or twice a week or
He
3 times a week. Like he's always coast. They call him like the Coastal Wall or something. It's not that, but it's something like that. And he's always on there.
he is widely compared to Calgary's Dustin Wolf. Like the two of them,
Mm-hmm.
they are very, very good goalie prospects. Obviously, Wolf is had some NHL time now, and he's the better prospect, but he is widely comparable
Well,
to Dustin Wolf.
with them not having a goalie winning 10 games, maybe he gets a shot.
Yeah, you never know.
But I mean, another thing with Detroit is now I think they're talking about trading Patrick Kane, and he's still like, well, if I waive my no move, it's to a contender. So now back to Florida. Could we see him go to Florida?
Oh yeah,
That'd be kind of sick.
I think we could.
send them Spencer Knight. You never know, might work out if he's ready to come back to the NHL.
Okay, there. Yeah.
Send him Spencer Knight in a package, and then yeah, I mean, I seen today that there was a news article saying he was either going to pick Boston or Las Vegas before he decided to sign with Detroit. Those were his other two teams.
Yeah,
I
and
guess, yeah.
Boston has some cap. Vegas is strapped. There's no way Vegas can make it work for what he signed for.
Yeah,
I think he could fit in Boston, but I'm just looking at Like who would Florida trade away to fit him? That's the only, because they're also cap strapped to the max right now, which is why Reinhart resigning is such a big topic. But like, do you trade Evan Rodriguez, who's your fifth best scorer? Do you trade Sam Bennett, who's like one of the best
That's another
playoff
name I
performers in
forgot
the
to mention,
NHL?
Sam Bennett.
Do you trade Nick Cousins? 37 games, 5 points.
Yep, trade him. Get him out of there.
Not really producing at a high level this
The only
year.
thing he's producing is dirty hits. Get him out of there.
Like, let's put this in perspective. Nick Cousins, 37 games, 5 points. Brandon Montour, 22 games. Aaron Ekblad, 21 games. Both 8 points as defensemen in 17 and 16 less games. They have more points than him. And he's playing top 6 minutes. Like, you need more. Or, you know what? You know who would be a really good return to go from Florida to Detroit? Anton Lundell
Yeah.
as a young center. And Eetu Luostarinen. Like, if you had Lundell and Luostarinen for Kane, something like that. That's probably too much. But one of those two and a back half of the draft pick, that's probably Luostarinen because he's a winger. So a winger for a winger and then a pick. You could see that maybe work. Right. Let's get on to Battle of the Tarps. This is exciting today because we have our first ever Battle of the Tarps where we're going to be talking about multiple because we have our semifinals of December Tarps now with Acadia Bathurst Teton versus Ljubljana and the Canmore Eagles versus the Flin Flon Bombers that we will need the viewers to vote for. But we are going to start with this week's 1st of the January Battle of the Tarps, the Manitoba Junior Hockey League's Winnipeg Freeze in their away jerseys. Got that in our randomizer. And we also got from the Dell League in Germany. They are called Lowen Frankfurt, but for those of us who are English, it is the Frankfurt Lions, and it is their away jersey. So let's go through this and start with the Winnipeg Freeze. Gentlemen, we got the black with the white on a diagonal across the middle with some blue striping and the going through it. So go for it, boys.
I love it. It looks just like Winnipeg Ice. It's a simple lettering design of freeze that looks frozen or ice, I guess. But yeah, no, I dig the concept of these uniforms.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have said it better, Dakota. They look almost identical to the Winnipeg Ice kind of style and look. I dig them personally.
This easily, we said this off stream that this was our hardest choice.
So
These
far.
jerseys are, so far. Both these jerseys are unreal. They put so much detail in. They have so many nice accents that are subtle and proper that you just can't go wrong with either one. I love the diagonal, right? So many teams just do the straight across color. They've got the diagonal going on with the lettering, and then just that one stripe of blue going with it too. That's unreal. And then the blue everywhere. Like, it's just perfectly accented. I love it. I think it's a great jersey. And let's compare it now to Frankfurt Lions or Lowen Frankfurt in the German league. First off, what pops off to me is very minimal advertisements.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, and I like that they have the lion, I think, 3D printed, I would assume, into the jersey, which I personally love. It's just nice fade into the jersey. It's not too strong, but you know what it is. And I like that they also didn't just have just the lion on the jersey. It looks like they got a little bit of a city background in there.
Yeah, I I personally, guys, I really think that this one is gonna sell it for me this week. This one here, because with the Winnipeg Freeze, it's literally a cut and copy and paste of the Winnipeg Ice franchise. Because the Winnipeg Freeze came to Winnipeg as an expansion team in 2020 after the Ice were already there. So it's like, boys, could we copy your homework? Sure, but don't make it look obvious. Well, they sure as shit did. And it's almost a copy and paste of like the color scheme. So you know what?
I
I like the originality of this one here of the Dell League, so I'm gonna go with this one. At least, they have some creativity and originality.
I could be wrong, but looking at photos to find this jersey, I think that this was a brand new rebrand this year for the Freeze. Like, yes, they totally took the Winnipeg Ice's look, but it wasn't until the Ice left, I think, if I'm right, because their jerseys did not look the same as far as I could tell. It could have been older photos. You never know with Google Images and when you're looking at images and stuff. But I think that this was a rebrand this year, but what it looked like. But again, you're right. They did copy the Winnipeg Ice pretty much to a T. It was like, oh, you're gone? Thanks.
Oh,
Like, we'll
exactly. I
take
mean, like, there's just
all the stylistic. But I do love the Frankfurt. The what I really like actually is on the arms, the little black square with the white line through it. How it doesn't go all the way around the wrist, and then how they have the fade from the gray to the white on the bottom of the sleeve to the top. Like that, how it's different on both sides. To me, that's really cool. That's something that you don't see. You usually see the sleeves be the same all the way around. And now we're seeing the sleeve be different on the outside and on the inside. And then, yeah, I love the fade in the lion head. And then, yeah, whenever I think I'm a sucker for like those city skylines. Like Dallas, you have that Calgary skyline jersey.
yeah.
Like,
Here,
it's just classy. It looks good. It's a homage to the team. Yeah, show it.
for all you at home,
What we're
this
talking
is what
about.
we're talking about here. So you got your Calgary Hitman jersey, but then you got.
Lift it a little higher for us. Yeah, yeah.
So you see what I
You
mean?
got the Calgary Tower
Yeah.
right there.
So it's perfect. Like
Exactly.
these jerseys
like
are amazing.
Oh, nice. So when teams do that, it feels like more of a city vibe to it, right? Like you're inviting your city into the logo,
Yeah, like
into the jersey. And for me, like that to me, like, yes, this Frankfurt Lions, they're gonna win this week for my personal vote. Again, please, voters and viewers, you guys vote as well so that we get this right and we pick the right team going forward. But I definitely do personally like Frankfurt over and I mean just barely over the Winnipeg
yeah, I'll
Freeze.
take Frankfurt too.
So that's 2 Frankfurt, 1 Winnipeg.
That is to start us off.
Representing the hometown.
But let's get into our semifinals. Because, like I said, we do need people to vote. We are doing our semifinals for December. So we're going to be putting up our January poll, but we are going to put up our 2 December polls separately for people to vote. Acadia Bathurst Teton versus Ljubljana, and Canmore Eagles versus the Flin Flon Bombers. Those 4 teams will be versing to become the finals, which we will do next episode on Battle of the Tarps. So that is everything for episode 18 of Gameday Tarps podcast. As always, to everyone, thank you for listening. Happy New Year this episode. It is 2024 now. Check us out on all social medias. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts. And again, as always, thank you for listening. Have a great night.